This morning, we're getting the perspectives of PTA presidents on violence in our schools. President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA Leighton Johnson, is welcoming the recommendation to establish school-based dispute resolution centers. He believes that course of action would be most efficient if supported by the deployment of more guidance counselors in our schools. Here's more by Abigail Bartley.
The recommendation to establish school-based dispute resolution centers was made by the private sector organization of Jamaica PSOJ in response to ongoing violence in the nation's schools. The PSOJ proposed that these centers be integrated within guidance counseling units and the offices of deans of discipline. The organization also recommended that the centers be staffed by conflict resolution professionals. The JTA president is welcoming the recommendations, but Leighton Johnson says some of these mechanisms already exist in schools.
The suggestion made for conflict resolution centers within our schools, the guidance counselors, the deans of discipline, they are already doing this. Of course, what we want is additional manpower to assist in the process. So, of course, the implementation or the deployment of conflict resolution specialists in our schools, this is something that our schools would welcome to assist or complement what is already being done.
Mr. Johnson says the current student-to-guidance counselor ratio in schools is 500 to 1. According to him, this is untenable.
There has to be that comprehensive review of the ratio of guidance counselors to students, and we are recommending anywhere between 250 to 300 students to a guidance counselor. Indeed, there is the need for additional guidance counselors within our schools. The issue, as you said, many of these incidents play out at school or in the vicinity, but it doesn't necessarily have its genesis at school. The community is the home, and that's where we all need to target.
Mr. Johnson notes that schools are required to report incidents of violence to the Ministry of Education on a monthly basis. He says this data could be used to develop a more targeted approach to violence in schools.
If we are analyzing the data from these logs, then we will see from a school the number of fights that took place within a month, where these fights took place, amongst whom or the students were involved, whether male or female. It tells the communities that these students come from. So this information is collated at the school. We now need to use this information to ensure as best as possible we target the interventions required.
Abigail Bartley for Nationwide News.
Joining us now, two PTA presidents to discuss the level of violence we're seeing in our schools. PTA president for Irwin High, and she's also an associate and a consulting psychologist, Rosette James Smith, and president of the Calabar Parent Teachers Association, Kenneth Lawrence. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Nationwide this morning. To you first, Mrs. James Smith, over there at Irwin, where you had that unfortunate fatal incident. How are the students coping? What are you hearing from the parents?
Well, we are grateful for the support we have been receiving from the Ministry of Education and other support systems that have been put in place. The students have been getting a lot of help. The board has instituted and met with teachers and students, and persons have been coming in, different pastors, different counselors from the trauma team from the ministry to support the students. The counselors there have also been providing support to individual students who need it, and we have been looking at other ways to serve our students and the school better as a PTA. Our students, some of them are still fearful. There are some who took a while to return to school because they were fearful, and fear was also strong among the parents. But the intervention measures that have been put in have been supporting and helping persons to cope. And we are now doing, as a PTA, 7 nights of prayer, which persons have been joining from different parts of the island and even in the U.S. just to support our school and stand in the gap, not just for our school, but for schools all across the island.
And how involved are the parents at Irwin? Do you have issues getting your parents to attend the PTA meetings? How involved are the parents at Irwin?
At Irwin, we face the same situation as other schools where you have a small percentage of parents that will come out to the general PTA meetings when they are held. But when grade meetings are called, they turn out much more. There are some that will never turn up, but parents turn out to the grade meetings much more than the general PTA meetings. So what the PTA does is we work with the school to make sure the parents are served from all areas. So we meet them where they are. And we have been having some of our meetings online, which allows much more parents to join. When we had the incident at the school on Sunday, we had an online session and our Zoom platform could only hold 300, and we had a lot of parents who weren't able to come online.
Mm-hmm. Kenneth Lawrence, where Calabar's PTA is concerned, is there a condition where each student enrolled at Calabar must bring a parent or guardian to the school at least once over the course of the school year?
Well, good morning, and I want to firstly, to my Irwin counterpart, our prayers are with you and the parents, all the parents involved in the situation, and we are very guided by what has happened at Irwin, to look at our situation at Calabar, and it is not something that is, synonymous with just Calabar. It's all the schools are having these issues based on my follow-up with different PTAs. As it relates to Calabar, at some point in time, yes. But the same situation exists as indicated that a lot of the parents, you see a larger number of grade 7 parents who interact with the school, and then as it gets up into the grade by grade 11, some of the parents don't even turn up. And that is something that, it's a societal thing that we have to address. They have said it's a village that raised a child. We all grew up hearing that, and the village seems to be waning significantly. I know Calabar has various parent-teacher consultations, which happens at specific times of the year for the parents to come in and interact with the school, with the teachers. And, in a lot of instances, that is probably the best turnout that we do get. The PTA has been doing its best to try and inform the parents, educate the parents on the importance of getting involved. There are some major challenges, communication, and as such, without information, the parents just lose interest, and we're trying to bolster that from our side at Calabar.
At Calabar again, and I hope you have you've seen the data, but is it that the bulk of the serious disciplinary issues are caused by boys in the lower school, say for instance grade 7 to 9, or those in the upper school from grade 10 up to upper 6?
Well, I will say to you that in regard to the data, the school doesn't share that data. But I will say to you, in our interaction as a PTA, and as early as last year about this time, we started to see some trends. And we realized that, especially at Calabar, lower school is gravely affected by violence of different types, bullying, theft, and so forth. Unfortunately, the numbers aren't shown, and persons don't want everybody to know what's going on. And this is probably why we've been in this position for too long. More schools need to speak up, and that the parents understand what's really going on the plan.
Yeah.
We recognized, especially last year, when we were able to interact with the boys at the school. The PTA used to meet in the mornings, and we used to, greet the boys saying, good morning, how's your day going, just to get a feel and talk to the boys and interact with some parents. And at that time, we were allowed to be in the school. And one day we were working with the Dean of Discipline, and we found out, of there are probably about 60 boys, 70 boys that were stopped one morning who were late, truancy, not properly attired in the uniform, and so forth. Most of them were like grade 8, you know, grade 9. And we really recognized that, COVID babies. So we spoke to the school administration to say, listen, come September, you need to put something specific in place for your grade 9 because you're going to have problems.
Yes.
Right? We've spoken, we've tried our best to talk to the administration. Let me tell you something. Everything starts from the home. But before we get to say it starts from the home, if the home is broken down, there's a lot of single parent household, grandmas who trying to grow these boys as the kids are parents are all over, gone away or something, or father's dead or whatever the case may be. So when the home has deficit, all of what is left is rest now on the school.
Hold it right there, okay? Kenneth Lawrence. Hold it right there. We're gonna pick this up after the break, and I also want to go back to the issue of where at Calabar, in your case, the problem seemed to start from. School violence troubling to the nation, and we've invited the PTA president for Irwin High. She's an associate and consulting psychologist, Rosette James Smith, along with the president of the Calabar PTA, Kenneth Lawrence, to give some perspective as to how we can fix. Kenneth Lawrence, you were telling me before the break that based on what you've observed, you say no data has been shared, and this is a part of the problem, but based on what you've observed, the lower school seems to have more serious disciplinary issues than the upper school. And if we can define lower school as between grades 7 and 9 and upper school as from 10 to 6th form, so it's grade 10, grade 11 and grade 12. Is it that the boys in the lower school, that there's bullying from within those ranks, or is it that boys from the upper school are bullying the boys in the lower school?
Well, that was one of the things that was more shocking. The boys are being bullied by their peers. So the lower school, we've seen situations where grade 8 boys are bullying grade 9 boys, and grade 7 boys are bullying grade 8 and grade 9 boys. The situation is also, networks. And this is not, as I said, many schools, we've spoken to other PTA presidents, the networks, they have cell phone stealing networks in the school and so forth. It is clear that COVID did have some effect. But then we need to stop saying COVID. We need to say, okay, the fix. And where all of it starts from is management, okay? If you were a director of a company, which would now reflect the board of Calabar or the board of any school, you would have a CEO, which would be the principal, and the manager, and then you have the staff. If there is a problem and you've seen it happening for years upon years and it's not being fixed, at some point in time, everything goes up to the directors. Somebody has to say, okay, listen, we need to put in some measures. I heard what Sir Johnson mentioned about the dispute resolution. That is a key thing. The guidance department at Calabar is swamped. If ever there was a lady who should have a cape, that is Miss Jarrett, or is our guidance counselor. She's loved by the boys, and she has to be dealing with, so I would say, too much. We've worked with the Dean of Discipline one morning. A couple of mornings. I said we used to be in the school, the PTA that is, and we were working with him, to try and talk to the boys and so forth. And one of the PTA execs spent a day with him just to see what is there. I mean, an entire day. And he's involved in law enforcement, and he says that it's unbelievable. He has to be literally trying cases, dealing with so many things. He can't even read an email because of how much interaction. So one Dean of Discipline for 1,700 boys. The challenge is that a lot of the framework, a lot of the schools need to be adjusted. The dispute resolution, we need to interact more with the police, because a lot of the things that are happening at the school is paramount to crimes. Right now, I know of a situation where a boy was arrested because of an assault at a boy at the school. And it's because the PTA at Calabar has said enough is enough. And the school their hands seems to be tied. I don't understand. So the PTA have said, for the safety of parents, if your child has an issue, report it to the police station. Because what is happening there seems to be a lot of resolution in the school, but then the boys who create the crime, are glorified and they continue doing it. And so you would find that boys who have been caught into situations, they are the same boys next time. I mean, incidents happen and you can identify right away who the boys are. This is all interacting with the school. We say, this is how, it's that boy, it's that boy. I mean, you know who the people are. Mm-hmm. So we need some, expulsion, yes, maybe the last situation that you want to go. So you don't want to just send boys out there or children out there. But what are the mitigating plans that are put in place? Demerits don't mean anything much more to boys anymore. Calabar has a situation where the boys wear black and white in case, for who have strong disciplinary issues. So they wear it for a couple of weeks or whatever the case may be. It's not a style. It's not a deterrent. I mean, unfortunately, black and white is the same colors that we graduated, so I don't even know. Probably it was the wrong choice of color. We probably need to put them in all red. But the point is, we have to find transformational things within the schools to make these changes. It is something that is very, very critical.
And those transformational changes, Rosette James Smith, what do you suggest that those could be?
Well, I totally agree with how we started with the fact that more guidance counselors are needed in the schools. The guidance counselors are reaching a point where they are overwhelmed with the number of cases, and when referred to the hospital where they have the child guidance clinic, the cases are seen far apart because of the number of persons that are referred. So a case is referred and is seen 2 weeks if it is an emergency, or 2 months if it is not seen as an emergency. And the cases are like a month or two apart. So the help is not really received for the parents as much. And not a lot of parents are able to pay for private help when they are referred to psychologists, because the guidance counselor sees that this is a case that is more than a guidance counselor should be dealing with based on their level of competency. So a lot more resources are needed.
And the personnel doesn't seem to be there, Mrs. James Smith.
That's it. I think there are only 2 social workers to work with the region in Region 4, and I believe it is the same across the island. And that gives an idea of what is happening. How much intervention can 2 social workers do for so many schools? In our region has 3 parishes. It is ridiculous.
Why not, Mrs. James Smith, Kenneth Lawrence? Since given the deficits, and it's not guidance counselors have been short or deans of discipline have been short in our secondary schools, especially where the main problems occur. Why is it that PTAs don't say, okay, we're offering up a few members to form a quasi-tribunal, then a 3 or 5 member. We're going to offer ourselves to help resolve some of the disputes that the guidance counselors would usually, or the dean of discipline would usually have to handle over a school term. And of course, the final decision rests with the school board or the school leadership, whatever the tier and the reporting structure is. But to help to solve some of those cases, to resolve some of those disciplinary issues, a panel of parents offers their services to hear matters, to seek to resolve matters, to make a recommendation. They don't have the power to recommend expulsion, because next thing you hear is recommend to expel people, picnic, and then that's another problem. But other measures apart from expulsion to resolve the dispute, to ease some of the burden. What say you on that, Kenneth Lawrence? And then I'll ask Mrs. James Smith for her perspective.
Well, it is surprising that you mentioned that. Let me start with this. The PTA at Calabar, we started last year, about May last year, trying to work with the Dean of Discipline. We worked with the then Principal, Mr. Carter, and we started to interact with and trying to in a semi-quasi way, set up something to that effect. And we were offering ourselves to say, listen, let us help. We can, how can we help you in the morning? So we had parents who were willing to come in the morning to, help to streamline. So the simplest things can be taken away from the school and the more harsher activities. That, from September, the school, we were asked, so that it was a challenge for the school. The school had a challenge with that. So I don't know,
what kind of challenge? But that doesn't make sense.
Let me just say this. You can't help somebody. You can't offer help to somebody if they don't take it, then it won't work. Okay? So, but one of the things also is that if you look at Calabar, we have a mentorship program.
Yes.
It's a strong mentorship program, and currently the mentors, they have been talking to the school for months, for years about issues because they want it to be more impactful. And I think, and a lot of mentorship starts at the lower school specifically.
And if you extend mentorship in the area that that I've suggested and that you said you've done, then that would make sense. Mrs. James Smith, what say you on that approach?
I totally agree. And I can say that at Irwin, the parents, we are now working together to form what we are calling and about to launch a Parents Action and Support Squad, where as parents, we put together resources, persons. We have social workers. I'm there as psychologists, and we have other persons in the parents' body who are able to help, who are able to say, listen, we are here and we are willing to offer our services free of cost to the school. So we want to be a more active part of the intervention. We want to be there not just for our children, but for other children who need help, parents who are not able to afford private help. And more parents have been coming on board. We are also looking at forming a club for persons, for children who feel that they are being bullied, to look at how, as children, they can deal with being bullied, how they respond, how they report.
And can I get a commitment that you'll put these on the agenda at the next PTA meeting at Irwin?
They are already on our agenda for May 1.
A final one from me for both of you as well. How is it that you'll get more of your parents to attend your Parent-Teachers Association meetings throughout the year? To you first, Kenneth, and then Mrs. James.
All right. Well, one of the first things that we need to do is we need to weather a storm that we currently have been dealing with for the last couple of years at Calabar. We don't have access to all the parents. And that is something that we have to try and work with the school, again, to see how we can get access to all the parents so we can communicate to all the parents. We have to try. We have a plan to launch a Calabar app, but it cannot be launched without the school administration getting involved and signing off. And those are some of the things that, red tape, if you want to call it. You can't help if someone doesn't want to accept the help. What we want to do is we need transfer. A lot of schools have started to fix the problems, and some haven't. And all of it starts from management leadership. We have to get that kind of changes, those changes at Calabar, and start getting them implemented now, okay? Because one of the challenges that we are having is that a lot of what is out there is just a small percentage of what's really happening. If I were to start talking now on this program this morning, we'll be talking till 5 o'clock this evening, and you'll be hearing that I'm washing Calabar's dirty laundry out in public. Because one of the issues is that we have kept silent. Schools have kept silent. Parents have kept silent too long because they're having problems. Parents are having problems dealing with the boys, and they don't say anything. The boys coming to the school, they're having problems. And it's not addressed in the way that it should be addressed. And then if they leave school barely functionable, and then we have the challenges out there in society. It's a village. The Calabar Old Boys Association, they are simply trying to help the school. The PTA. But if all of us don't come at the table and say, okay, listen, we're going to fix the school, but it has to start with being honest. We have to be honest at what's really happening and stop going around corners and having these pretty words.
Yeah, I agree on that one. And giving the final word to you, Mrs. James Smith, getting more of your parents to attend these PTA meetings and getting involved in fixing the problem.
The important thing here is to go where the parents are and where they will go. So what we have realized is that when the school calls them in for a meeting to deal with, for example, for the grade 11, they're preparing for CSEC, or there is a meeting for community service, the parents turn out because they do not want their child to be left behind. And so what we have been doing is putting the PTA meetings to coincide with those meetings. Since the parents are there, then we go there. And so we work with the school And we also are trying to do training so that the parents know that the meetings are valuable. So to encourage parents, listen to your children. The teacher has 45. When your child comes home, take time to listen. Don't start to blame. Listen and encourage the child. Discourage name calling. If you hear your child come home and say, oh, there is a fatty in my class, discourage it. Don't encourage it. And help the students to know that they can trust the teachers. Don't talk about the teachers in a negative way so that they feel like they cannot speak to them. Encourage them to go to your teacher, go to your guidance counselor, go and talk to your dean of discipline when there is a matter. If you go to one person and the person you don't feel comfortable, go to somebody else. Don't just stop there and say nobody cares.
Yeah.
And as parents, we need to be role models. Very important. How we settle conflicts reflects highly on how our children settle conflicts. So we need to set the example.
Have to leave it there. Rosette James Smith, who is the PTA president for Irwin High, an associate and consulting psychologist, and president of the Calabar PTA, Kenneth Lawrence. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
A recent poll published by the Gleaner newspaper, actually in today's Gleaner, the Tuesday Gleaner, commissioned by the PNP, shows that the opposition party has a sizable lead over the ruling JLP. That poll was conducted by Don Anderson's Market Research Services Limited between April 4 and 12 among persons over age 17.
It canvassed the views over the age of 18. It canvassed the views of 1,057 respondents and has a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. It shows that if a general election were to be called shortly, the PNP would get the support of 36.8% of respondents. The JLP would get the support of 29% of respondents. Those numbers give the PNP a clear lead, 7.8 percentage points, well outside the margin of error.
According to the poll, 19.1% of respondents say they are undecided. Another 15% say they will not vote. Don Anderson says the PNP continues to enjoy strong support from older persons and that the PNP and JLP are even when it comes to support in the 18 to 24 age group. That's significant because usually they say the younger voters prefer the JLP. Don Anderson says the polls show not so. And he also notes that support for the PNP across both genders is stronger than the JLP, noting that 44% of respondents say they would vote for the PNP because the party looks after the poor. The PNP General Secretary Dr. Dayton Campbell joins us this morning. Good morning, Dr. Campbell.
Hi, good morning, and good morning to your listeners.
All right. So these poll findings in line with what the PNP expected when it asked the researcher to go in the field?
Well, we continue to be guided by the data. So we have been doing serial polling, as you're aware, and we don't necessarily predict what is there. We suspected that there would be an increase in the lead that we've had since last year, February. But coming out of the local government elections, we assume that the lead would have expanded. We note it. We're happy that we do have a lead, but we're not satisfied. So we continue to put in the work and to execute on the plan that we have.
For the uninitiated, what would account for the lead being so sizable, comfortably outside the margin of error at a time when the party has drawn breath on its activities, given the intense work that went into the local government campaign? Now that the party has, well, not resting, but as I said, drawing breath, this lead is so big in that period. What accounts for that?
Well, you have to be mindful of something called momentum in politics. And when you're looking at polls, certainly when we're looking at polls, we're not just looking at the immediate poll that we have in front of us, but we're looking at the trend that has developed. And last year when we first released a poll, it was 29.1 to the PNP to 28.9 to the JLP. A few months later, it went to 5 points. Then Gleaner commissioned the poll using the same poll. So it was at 3.4. And then I think a group of businessmen in December did another one. It was at 3. So we figured that coming out of that intense period of campaigning and the credible performance of the party, where we won the popular vote nationally and we won more divisions than the governing party, that would have said to some of our supporters and others that, this is a real thing. Because the election is the most accurate poll you can get. And having come out of that winning more divisions and winning the popular vote, we felt that more of our supporters would be like, well, maybe this is for real. So I think that is what is showing here, that the momentum is gathering. We used it as well to see a check coming out of the budget debate. Wanted to get a check to see where we are, so we can chart our course forward. Over the next couple of months, we'll be having our divisional conferences. I mean, I'm speaking at one on Saturday and another one on Sunday. So we'll have our divisional conferences, which flows into our constituency conferences. So, and the leader is back on the road. So we continue to do what we need to do. There are some variables that are within our control, and those are the things that we have to focus on.
Dr. Campbell, I want to play a clip for you. A former PNP politician, Venetia Phillips, she spoke, reacted to the polls this morning, dismissed it. Going to play a clip for you of what she said in reaction to the findings and have you respond.
But look at the stupidity of this particular poll. It is coming when they need a distraction from the fact that what? The 1st of April came in when the salary adjustments, the second part, would have taken effect. So it is coming in to coincide with the month-end payments. Teachers are feeling a little bit better. Public servants generally, those who have seen a movement in their salaries, they're in a kind of a different mood and mode. You see it all across social media, even from some known comrades, And so what they want to do is detract from that.
She says these polls, she's been there, she's seen it, is a time-worn strategy used by the PNP, and this one in particular is intended to blunt the impact of the budget measures announced by the Andrew Holness-led government. What do you make of what her reaction has been to the poll findings?
I took your interview to have a serious discussion, not a trivial one, with somebody who's trying to resurrect what is a dead political career. So I won't say anything further on that.
But she's calling you out. She has put it out there that she's been there. She's seen polls. She was a member of the PNP. She's seen how polls have been used and is calling it. She's saying that it's a strategy that she has seen. Don't you think you should respond to something like that? She's put that out there in the public, to say that polls that have been done by the PNP has always been some sort of strategy. And this one in particular, she's saying that it was used at this time as a strategy to blunt the impact as a distraction as well from the measures announced by the Andrew Holness-led government.
I repeat the point that I made earlier. I took your interview to have a serious conversation, not about somebody whose political career had come to an end in the PNP, who was not going to be a candidate, went across to the JLP, lost and is now in the political wilderness, and is seeking relevance. That's not what I took this call to have a conversation about. We asked a reputable pollster in Dan Anderson, who runs market research, to conduct a poll. His methodology has been tested and proven over the years. In relation to the local government election in both December and February, he called it that it was a statistical dead heat. I believe he has been accurate in more polls than the ones that he has been inaccurate in. We continue to undergo that process. I am not aware of anything that Ms. Phillips is speaking about, and nor do I intend to have a conversation about it.
The issue of the leadership standings, are we to anticipate that those findings are also part of the poll that you commissioned and that we should expect those results when Sunday?
No, man, those were released already. The favorability of the leaders, Holness favorability is at 40, and the current leader, Mark Holness, is at 37. Holness' unfavorability is at 31, and the current leader's unfavorability is at 18.
I was looking for the direct question as to who would you vote for prime minister. Who would you vote for if you could select the prime minister directly? He didn't ask the question that way.
No, we don't ask that because that's a theoretical question. We do not vote for prime minister like that.
That's what I was pushing for. Lastly, before we go, Dr. Campbell, the work to make Mark Golding, I don't want to say presentable or palatable, but to fashion for him an image as a serious political animal, given what he was before. People gave him kudos for his work in governance and being a minister of justice and a member of the Senate and a person who came with solid ideas. But in terms of a politician, that took some work. Is that work complete?
No, we never ever stop our work in the middle of the game. We run right through to the tape. So that is an ongoing process to present the leader to the country so that they can be aware of who he is, what he stands for, his views on things, and what he's bringing to leadership. You must look as well at his performance. Again, I say that an election is the most accurate poll you can get. Prime Minister Holness has led the JLP into 3 local government elections in 2012, 2016, and 2024. The party under Holness polled 247 votes in 2012, 287 in 2016, and 289 in 2024. Mark Golding has led the PNP into 1 local government election, and coming out of that, the PNP polled 311,000 votes, which is more than we polled in the general election of 2020, where we polled 306,000. I think those who want to continue to have that discussion, they're having it to their own peril. Mark Golding has arrived on the big platform. He has proven himself in the local government election, and I'm happy if people continue to underestimate it. But Mark Golding is no fluke. He's here and is a real deal.
Hear you on that. Thank you this morning, Dr. Campbell.
You're most welcome.